Hey, what's up guys? It's Jakeem the Nerdy Python, and today I'm going to be giving you a little bit of a recap of my recent trip to DC with my family. First off, I just got to acknowledge the fact that it's been almost 2 weeks since my last upload, and I'm pretty sure that this is the longest I've gone between uploads since I started my channel, so thank you guys for staying tuned and welcome back. In case you're in need of a bit of a brushing up in geography, Washington DC is not to be confused with Washington State, which is on the northwestern border of the U.S. It's actually a city in Virginia, which is a northeastern state, just so there's no confusion. And we didn't actually stay in D.C., we were actually in Springfield, which is just like 20 minutes outside of it. So we left for Springfield early Thursday morning around 5 a.m. and we didn't get there till later that evening. And the trip took us a little bit over 16 hours, I want to say, which actually felt like forever, but was more than worth it once we actually got there. The next morning, we met up for breakfast at 6, and then we headed for DC via the subway. And the cool thing about the subway, guys, is that it's actually located right beneath the Pentagon. So any kind of photo shots and video recording is actually prohibited. And it really scared the shit out of me when, you know, one of the security guards warned us that soldiers would come down with M13s if we did. And it seemed, I don't know if she was joking or not, it really didn't seem like she was, but I sure as hell didn't, try to find out. When we finally did arrive in DC, the first thing we did was stop and take photos of all the buildings surrounding us, which were very old and archaic and probably been around since like the founding of the US. And we also bought these matching DC hoodies that really look pretty cool, and I actually took a lot of selfies in. We then headed to the African American Museum, which my mom in particular was super excited about, because she had been wanting to visit the place ever since it was built just a few years ago. And the awesome part about it, guys, is that each floor represents a different time period for African Americans in the US, starting from slavery all the way to the modern era, and it shows a lot of the contributions that we made to the country. There were a lot of artworks celebrating historically famous black Americans, like these Air Force Ones that were decorated with President Obama's face, and also statues of famous athletes like Venus and Serena Williams, which were just done so creatively. The museum also revealed a lot of truths that at least I was never taught in school, like, the true discovery of America, and also the famous Emmett Till case that took place during segregation. So that was pretty much day one. Day two started out exactly the same, albeit a little later, but this time we actually headed for the DC National Zoo. And a fun fact, guys, is that, aside from parking and food, which is really how they get you in the end, the zoo is actually free to enter. It was nothing out of the ordinary from the average zoo, but we actually did get to see a group of lionesses and these cute prairie dogs that lived in holes under the ground, sort of like the meerkats from Lion King. But the high point of day two, guys, was definitely getting drunk and playing dominoes with my uncle and cousin-in-law. So on our third and final day, we decided to split up, with my group heading back to DC for the MLK and Lincoln Memorials, while the other group headed to the Springfield Mall to catch a movie. It actually took us a lot less time to navigate the subway than our first visit, which was sort of a hassle because we had a much bigger group and had to be instructed on how to get our tickets. Our first stop was the Smithsonian Museum of African Artifacts, which was just so huge and just lined with these very authentic trinkets of gold, which really just shows us that, black folks have been wearing bling since the beginning of time. And guys, I mean, this place was so huge that, we actually left that part and ended up in a whole new museum lined with Chinese artifacts. We also visited the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, which is more geared towards dinosaur fossils and, the supposed evolution of mankind from apes to what we are now, which just brings up the whole debate of science versus religion. To cap the day off, we also visited the Martin Luther King and Lincoln Memorials, which were pretty much the highlights of the day, as we were able to get some very beautiful photos of some of the most iconic landmarks in U.S. history. And one last cool thing, guys, is that the Lincoln Memorial is actually adjacent to the Washington Monument in the Capitol, so once you reach the top of the stairs, you could get both of them in one beautiful shot. So that was pretty much the gist of our trip to DC, guys. We left the following morning at around 8, and we actually didn't get back to Orlando till like 11 p.m. the same night because of all the stops. I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about my trip to DC. It was very fun, and I highly recommend everybody take a trip to our nation's capital. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you tap that bell for notifications. There's also links to my social media posted down in the description below. And as always, Nerdy Python is out of here.